Welcome to Wellsprings of Faith. My name is Father Jürgen Liias. I'm a Roman Catholic priest and a resident here in the Melrose community. My primary work of occupation and priestly ministry is down the road in Stoneham at St. Patrick's. Our program, Wellsprings of Faith, looks at a person's journey in faith and also the fruit of that journey and the life and work that God has called them to do. Today, it's a joy to welcome a new friend, Father Jay Woods. He's a Franciscan priest that will share about his journey into that. And we actually work together in Wakefield once a month with a healing mass at St. Florence, Wakefield. It's usually the third Wednesday of the evening if you happen to be watching the show and interested in coming to one of our masses. And it's been a joy to be a partner in that part of the ministry of Christ to the world. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a special joy. You know, to share with you in the healing ministry, because it was really as a young Episcopal priest that I really found the Lord through the healing ministry after I was ordained. So I jokingly say I was ordained first and converted later. But there was sort of a conversion from religion to Christ, if you probably know what that means.
I do, yes. Yep.
So.
Yep.
Anyway, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
And as I said in the introduction, this is a show about the journey of faith. So tell us your journey in faith as far back as you can remember.
Sure. So I am a local boy. I grew up in Peabody, Massachusetts.
Oh, really? You are local.
Yeah, I grew up in Peabody. Thank you. My family is all still there in the North Shore area.
Did you grow up in the church?
I did. I grew up, I went to public school and we attended St. John the Baptist Parish in downtown.
That's interesting. I had Father McGinnis on here.
Oh, did you really?
Recently,
okay.
And also I've worked a lot there as a supply priest while he was rector there.
Oh, so. Great. Yeah, no, it's a great parish, parish to grow up in. My family and I were very active in attending church and in religious education. I was an altar server starting in the 4th grade and taught religious education. My dad and I were both on the pastoral council. So, you know, there was a lot of that seed was planted very early, especially by my grandparents and my parents and the whole family. So, you know, prayer was definitely instilled and encouraged both at meals. I remember, you know, my really learning to pray before going to bed by my maternal grandmother. And so, you know, especially I think, I'm also still grateful for it, I think especially as a way of just sort of calming myself and going to sleep. And personally, that is actually one of my practices is for my meditation and contemplation is in the evening, sort of, you know, before drifting.
Well, it's funny, I was just listening to Bishop Barron. You know him, it's a word of fun. He was talking about how do we get our children to have a real faith. And almost a bunch of the things he said in that talk were precisely what you said. Parents who kind of teach, it isn't just send them to CCD and we'll see you after Mass, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, don't go to Mass, but really practice at home. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, that it's great that those, you know, just to see now as a friar and is to see those areas that my parents and my grandparents instilled that I just sort of naturally take on that, you know, it's only time that has really allowed me to sort of focus and say, that's where those seeds were planted and see this is how they've grown and have matured and I, you know, I think often I was meeting with someone the other day and talking about the times that we have during our day to sort of take to ourselves and to meditate and to pray. And the evening is definitely mine, I think, because of my grandmother. So, but I grew up in Peabody and I went to college at Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts in Massachusetts. And it was there that I was, you know, I grew up desiring and considering the priesthood and wondering where God exactly was calling me.
So that was something also there in your psyche from an early age.
It was, yeah. I also did a lot of theater growing up. And so when I went to college, I wasn't exactly sure where God was calling me. So I majored in philosophy and theater. And so,
And where was it you went? Mass College of Art?
Mass College of Liberal Arts.
Where is that
It's in North
located?
Adams, Massachusetts.
Oh,
so it's all the way on the
all
other
right.
side of Massachusetts from here. So.
Was that used to be the state college out there?
Yeah,
out
it used to
there?
be. Used to be
the
North
old-
Adams State College. It
yeah.
actually changed when I was a freshman.
Oh,
They actually changed
okay,
names when I
okay.
was
That's
a freshman.
a nice area too.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I've spent a lot of time in the Berkshires.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
yeah, it's so beautiful.
It's a hiker, yeah.
Yep. So it was during that time that I started, exploring my faith, exploring, continuing to develop myself as an artist, and my career during summer stock and those sort of things just sort of took off, and I decided that this was where God was calling me, is to start a career in the theater. So after college, I went and started pursuing theater, and mostly as a costume designer and working in, as a tailor and doing wardrobe and those types of things. And that's, my career really took off. I spent 4.5 amazing years as the costume director for North Shore Music Theater.
Oh, really?
Which is right up here.
I'm a season ticket holder.
Excellent,
So
excellent.
I probably saw you or saw your work anyway. No, I've been doing that for probably 25 years.
Oh, nice. That's great. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah, it is.
It was at the time we were fully producing in the costume shop, and it was a wonderful crew and a wonderful time to be there. It was also a great experience of learning and experimenting and trying to figure out, different ways of being creative with a very small budget. And after 4.5 years of there, I decided to take the leap of faith, and so I moved to New York City, and was in New York.
The Mecca of theater.
Mecca of theater.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And was there for 10 years as a working on Broadway and working in television and film. I worked there. I moved to New York City actually with a job on Broadway, and which was
because
amazing.
I was going to jokingly say going into theater kind of prepared you for your life of poverty as a Franciscan, because most people have this dream of going to theater.
Yes.
And they're waiting on tables to supplement their little theater income.
No, absolutely. You really were able. I was extremely blessed. I did, my entire career was spent working in theater. I never worked outside of my industry.
Now, during those 14 years, I mean, was the faith still part of you, or were you?
It was.
You were still a practicing Catholic?
Absolutely, I was. And in the beginning, I definitely in the beginning, I saw that it was God who was truly blessing me in this.
Yeah, you really saw that way as a vocation.
I really did, and I really saw it as this was what God was calling me to. And in the beginning, I had a heart full of gratitude for job opportunities that happened when I needed them, and it was really a blessed time. And much like in many instances, near the end of my time in New York, it was really no longer about God, and the ego certainly took over, and started getting much further away from my faith, and the opportunities that presented themselves were no longer because of God, but it was there because of me and my ego and my working hard and all of these things. And so I got very wrapped up in a lot of what the entertainment industry has to offer, and then to jump all the way to the middle in the new beginning on September 8th, 2012, I entered rehab. And really threw myself into recovery. I had enough of the chasing and the racing and all of that, and so on that date I entered rehab completely freely and excited to surrender to the program.
What was sort of the epiphany in your heart and mind that sort of said, with all the success and obviously financial success, I'm sure, and everything else with it, what happened inside you that made you stop?
My low was pretty low, and I was in the process of being evicted, and I had very many moments of loneliness where I realized this is not who I am.
Yeah.
And I look back on those course of probably about a week or, and I was moving into a new apartment because I was getting kicked out of the other one. And I called my dad and I said, I think I want to come home for a while. He's like, we think you should too. and so I came home and
they kind of observed from outside.
They knew, yeah, they
knew you.
Yeah, my brother was very intuitive, and my brother, before I came home, the weeks leading up to that, my brother said, I think something's going on with Jay.
Yeah.
So when I came home, my family did an intervention. And I said, you are absolutely right. I surrender. I can't do this anymore. And so it was just, in those last days of leaving New York City,
yeah.
I fully know that it was God that was carrying me from New York City to Boston. I don't remember a heck of a lot of it. And so, I truly know that the my family's intervention and even my heart surrendering, my heart realizing this is not who I am.
Yeah.
This is not who I grew up as, and I want myself back. I had really, we talk about recovery as a spiritual disease, and the fact that you lose so much of yourself,
yeah.
you lose so much of your identity as who you are, and your faith and any spirituality that you had, prior to beginning to use drugs. So, I was grateful to have that moment of clarity, and the intervention from my parents and my family, and in recovery, in early recovery, I just threw myself into it. And
what was sort of significant about the kind of, obviously different recovery programs.
Sure.
What was it that was particularly meaningful about? And also times there's a lot of failure in recovery.
Sure, no, absolutely, yeah.
Detoxification is part of it, but then
yep. No,
not retoxification. I don't know what the right word is. Finding yourself.
Revinding, absolutely,
yeah.
Revitalization.
Being reborn.
Yep. No, it was. I entered a program. The program that I entered ultimately, and am still a part of, is Narcotics Anonymous.
Yeah.
And I was blessed with an amazing sponsor, an amazing recovery group, and the people that I still consider family on the North Shore were just amazing to take me in and to realize that, to really show me the way of recovery, to show me the steps, and to both the 12 steps and the physically 12, the physical steps of finding this newness of life and this new way of life.
When was this?
This was in 2012.
12, okay,
This
so
was
10 years ago
2012.
now,
Yep.
yeah, as we're taping this.
Yeah,
Wow,
absolutely.
wow.
So, and then it was really in recovery that I volunteered at a homeless shelter in Salem, Massachusetts, and it was there that really this spark of a life of service really reignited itself.
Wow.
And so I said, okay, God, after all these years, I surrender. And I knew that if it was to be, it would be with the Franciscans, who are just lead their life by the gospel, and are always of service to.
What was your connection with
whomever.
the Franciscans that became then a kind of direction?
Yeah, so I grew up going to St. Leonard's in the North End, but also to Art Street.
Okay.
At St. Anthony's Shrine, which is now wonderfully I live and minister at, and I was really introduced to the Franciscan charism when I was in college, and by my spiritual director at the time. So I was introduced to the conventuals at St. Hyacinth in Granby, and it was really there that I fell in love with the story of St. Francis and the charism. The vows that we take as Franciscans, and especially the life of community. As you know, I just had total hip replacement, and at the young age of 45, and it was the last few weeks that I just realized just the amazing importance of community in our lives, and why I think God and specifically Francis calls us to this life of community. It's to care for each other. All the brothers were amazing and supportive, and there were a group of three of my brothers who really just helped me do a lot of things, and it was also very humbling of myself to sort of say, "You're right. I have a walker. I can't get my own meals, so please help me."
Yeah. Yes,
So-
our propensity, self-sufficiency. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tell us, even though you and I mean, obviously I know about Francis, but say a few things about the Francis and the Franciscan life, assuming someone's out there, you know, who knows virtually nothing.
Sure, sure. So St. Francis came from the merchant class of Assisi, which is a town northeast rather, of Rome. He grew up in a very well-to-do family, the emerging merchant class at the time, and the beginning of what we know as money. And his father really wanted him to be a knight, and to have that glory and that prestige to ultimately get to the noble class. So Francis tried, and he realized that it really just wasn't for him. He was on his way to the Fourth Crusade, and had a vision of God calling him and telling him that he was answering the call to the wrong knight, the wrong king. And so he turned around and came back to Assisi, and it was there in those early days that he sort of realized, was trying to really search for himself and search where God was calling him to. And one of the most powerful moments that he experienced was, and really what he sees as one of his metanoia, his change of heart towards God, was he encountered a leper on the road one day, and he says in his testament that which used to repulse him became very sweet. And he got off his horse and went down and hugged this leper, which at the time, of course, we know was not something that one would have done. And so he hugged this leper, and that encounter and that embrace changed his heart forever, and that's why he eventually went on to begin to build the church again, which he had this experience at San Damiano, in which God asked him to rebuild his church, which was in ruin.
Yes.
Francis took that literally and started rebuilding the church, and as we know, ultimately it meant the whole church.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I remember it was one of my favorite movies, a little romanticized, I suppose, Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon.
Right.
Zeffirelli's version of St. Francis, but those scenes are so beautifully done.
They are.
Well, you being a theater man and a movie man, you could appreciate probably
movie.
the art more.
It's a beautiful movie, yeah, absolutely.
So just this wonderful spirit of family, that's the charism, this deep love for the poor.
Yep.
And living poor, living humbly, and
I think it's also about living with those that we minister with,
community,
to, and being a part of the community.
The community
of
brothers, right?
Yep.
Friars. I mean, that's what the order of friars, right?
Yep, the order of friars minor. Yep.
That's right. That sense of brothers.
The order of little brothers. So.
Yeah, particularly in our culture, as increasingly reading that the dysfunction, the disorientation, the disease of our culture, among many things, things like addiction are more a manifestation, a symptom rather than the cause, is the loneliness, the breakdown of the family, the breakdown of marriage, the breakdown relationships between men and women, and just the breakdown of community. Was that book a few years ago, Bowling Alone, was a sociologist. Did you ever hear that book?
I have not, no.
It was a Harvard sociologist writing about the phenomenon in America, where there used to be leagues and fellowships and community groups, bowling leagues. All that's gone, and that's why I titled the name book, Bowling Alone.
Yep, I like that.
But the need, it's not good for man to be alone. That's the first thing God said to Adam.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's there are so many reasons that people fall into addiction. That to be able to pinpoint into one thing is very difficult. But it certainly is. Certainly loneliness and the need to figure out. I think a lot of it is the need to know who you are.
Yeah.
And either to hide or to be in fear, and that fear can sometimes be from the fear that was instilled in you in childhood, or the fear that you have right now about what's going on in your life, or abuse that you have experienced, or trauma that you have experienced. All of these, all of these things. It's certainly in the blood. It is certainly, hereditary as well. So there are many, many, many things which lead individuals to actively use, whether it be drugs or alcohol.
So at 35, you had quite a reorientation. I mean, because the whole lifestyle and a whole, from the garments of theater to the simple habit of a Franciscan monk. Tell us about your journey into that, to finally a little bit about what it's like to move into that universe.
Yeah, no, it's our formation begins with postulancy, and then we have our year of novitiate afterwards. My postulancy was here in Boston. My novitiate was in Burlington, Wisconsin. And then after that, I began studies at Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. One of my main ministry during that time was as a chaplain for Cook County Jail.
Oh, wow.
Which is the largest.
Yeah, that's a rough neighborhood too. The highest murder rate and all kinds of stuff we hear. I don't know.
Yeah,
I've only visited Chicago, but I don't know if I want to move there.
It's a wonderful city. It's a wonderful city. It's a wonderful city. And being the division that I was in was Division 6, which is the drug division for those who are either detoxing or were addicted or had some sort of drug offense, whether it be selling or buying or that sort of thing. And so, to really journey with, it was a men's division, and to really journey with those men was just a wonderful experience that really, really helped to solidify my vocation of sitting and listening with people and allowing their story to touch my heart, and to really opening my heart to them, and to listening and to hear what people's needs are, and to hear where people's hurts are, and again, sort of like we were saying, is what are those things, what are their hurts that brought them either to the disease of addiction or to robbing or something like that. So I think it's those things that, what is their journey? What are those things? What is their hurt? What is the trauma in their life that they've experienced? And how can our faith really begin to heal that wound? A lot of times it starts with self-forgiveness. This amazing need that we all have. And especially those in the graced encounter in confession, to be able to journey with people to really forgive themselves, for the past, hurts that they've caused or experiences that they've had, and the sins that they've done, and to begin to know that, as much as we have a hard time believing it, that with the prayer of absolution and with God's love, God is absolute and full of mercy. And so it's...
Well, many have said that the 12-step, the 12-step movement in all its permutations and combinations, depending on how they started with alcohol, but it's gone, is the most significant spiritual movement in our time. And it's quite interesting. I was an Episcopal priest for 40 years, and I became a Catholic, and that's my story. But Sam Shoemaker, I don't know if you ever heard the name Sam Shoemaker. He was an Episcopal priest. He was the one who developed the 12 steps. And he was a fascinating. I never met him. I met his wife when I was a young Episcopal priest. She was alive. He had died. But he developed the 12 steps. And the 12 steps of the gospel in disguise, I call it, I know from people, because I've met some people go back pretty early into the days of the AA, that they found that religious language was a barrier to a lot of people because they've been beaten up by religion.
Sure, absolutely.
And, they were drunks, they were, but the 12 steps, which is a spiritual program, is the gospel. You admit you're powerless, you turn to a higher power. I always say if you want to know the name of Yahweh Power. His name is Jesus, but if you don't know his name, it still works. And then the confession, like you said, the moral inventory, it's all.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then going out and sharing your new thing with others, and it's all.
It is. It absolutely is.
It's the
absolutely
gospel.
is. It's
the
surrendering. It's surrendering to God and acknowledging the areas in your life that you are struggling. It's asking God. It's welcoming God into that hurt. It's looking at yourself and sort of the confessional, and sort of experiencing and sort of naming those areas in your life that you're struggling with, and sharing them with God or another human being. Whether it be your sponsor, or in many cases they come to us at St. Anthony's for that. So, and then to be able to make the amends, and to be able to make the amends whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others.
Yeah, that's right.
And to be able to and then to be able to repeat it all over, and to be able to every day do that examine.
That's right.
Certainly Bill W. and Dr. Bob were very influenced by a Jesuit friend of theirs, and who helped them create these 12 steps. And it was, and to be able to, the reality is that our, in recovery, in our 12 steps, we have an examine at the end of each day, and throughout our day, to be able to see the wrongs that we've done, and to be able to examine those areas of our lives that are maybe causing us distress, or causing us to be, the inability to sleep soundly at night, and then to bring them to God. And to the 11th step is to prayer, and the 12th step is to pass it on.
Pass it on.
And that's one of those things that, especially as a Christian, our faith isn't our own. Our faith is to be shared. Our faith is to be celebrated and shared with other people. And so that's exactly what we do in 12-step recovery.
You are. That's your particular work now, as at the Arch Street, correct?
It
help
is.
Mostly work with
I work
people in recovery.
Yeah, I work a lot with people in recovery, both one-on-one, and we're actually, I can put a giant plug in, if I may. This September, each September is Recovery Month. And we are going to be having we're going to be celebrating Recovery Month. We're starting it the first Friday of September with a new documentary called Remembering Michael. Our recovery center at the Shrine is called the Michael Judge Recovery Center. Michael Judge was one of our brothers. Michael Judge is the first victim of 9/11. He was the priest, the friar that went in to save, and he was the first victim to die on 9/11. He's counted as number one. And so the Recovery Center is named after him. He was a great man of great faith and great recovery and great joy in his recovery. So the center is named after him. So we're showing a documentary called Remembering Michael.
Yeah,
and
wonderful.
So we're doing that. And then the second week on the Wednesday, we're having a panel discussion, a conversation about 12-step spirituality. And then on the 24th, Saturday the 24th at 5:30, we're having a recovery mass.
Oh, wow.
So it'll be
wow. Well,
full month.
I think, we talk about the new evangelization a lot, and obviously in the church, and figuring out with really, to be obvious, the great decline in practice and numbers in the church, yet at the same time, in a way, the addiction, the culture of addiction is a wonderful opportunity for the gospel to go out.
Absolutely.
Because it is the answer, whether it's shaped in a 12-step program or in the kind of sacramental system of the church. It's really to bring people into freedom and wholeness and forgiveness.
And to encounter God.
Yeah, and to meet the living God.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. We could go on and on.
So fast.
Would you come back sometime?
Sure.
Because I think that as your ministry then now grows and continues, and of course we'll fortunately be sharing some time together every month at the healing masses in Wakefield. So thank you for
Thank you very much.
story
I
and blessings on your ministry and your work. And I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. Arch Street is in downtown Boston. It's a Franciscan center. and a place filled with many ministries, but obviously this is one of them. So if you know someone who may need some help in this area, that's a wonderful resource in Boston. And so God bless in your work, and thank you for joining Wellsprings of Faith.